committee members introduce themselves, starting on my right with Senator Blood.
Good morning. My name is Senator Carol Blood, and I represent District 3, which is Bellevue and Papillion.
Good morning, Rita Sanders, representing District 45, the Bellevue Offutt community.
John Lowe, District 37, which is Kearney, Gibbon, and Shelton, and the home of Central Nebraska Veterans Home.
Good morning, Senator Steve Halloran. I represent Adams County, and I now represent Kearney County and most of Phelps County.
Hi, I am Megan Hunt, and I represent District 8 in Midtown Omaha.
All right, and I've got a note from Senator McAllister. He had surgery and is on the mend today, so he will be out of the net. Let's see, on my right is my legal counsel for the government committee, Dick Clark, and on the left on the corner is committee clerk, Julie Conan. Assisting us today are pages, Jason Welding, he's a junior from UNL and comes from Chicago. And our other page is Kate, is it Cassasine?
But yeah.
All right, she is a senior at UNL and she resides from Chicago also. The committee will hear the following legislative resolution today, LR 137, which is the interim study to assess the operations and practices of the Central Nebraska Veterans Home. The interim study is introduced by a senator. The legislation is designed to investigate certain topics that may be investigated by the committee. We'll receive information today to help facilitate these proceedings and maintain a proper record. We ask your assistance in the following areas. Please mute your cell phones or any other electronic devices. Let's see, where are we here? We'll begin with the introduction by the introducing senator, Senator Aguilar. And after his opening testimony, we'll have testifiers come up and then we will close with the senator being able to have closing remarks. If you're here today and you plan to testify, please pick up one of the green sheets at the back, fill it out. We'd ask that you print clearly so that it can properly be entered into the record. If you're here and do not plan to testify but wish to record your attendance, there's a white sheet that you can fill out. If you have handouts, we ask that you provide 12 copies. Today, we could probably get away with a few less than that. We will not be using the light system today. If you get long-winded, I will simply stop you. All right. So with that said, we will move to the first item, which is LR 137. Senator Aguilar, welcome to the Government Committee.
Thank you, Colonel Brewer. Members of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. My name is Ray Aguilar. It's spelled R-A-Y-A-G-U-I-L-A-R. I'm the state senator representing Legislative District 35, which is essentially Grand Island. Many times over the years, I have seen others shake the hand of a veteran and say, thank you for your service. It has become almost obligatory and seems to have lost some of its meaning it once had. When we say this to a veteran, we should have resolve with it, as if to say, I've got your back. Along with the veterans in our state, we should also fight to help the healthcare workers who provide them with the care they need. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic took a precarious job situation and made it even worse. Retention of healthcare workers at many of the state's facilities has slipped because hours have increased, but wages have not, causing many problems in the system, including declining morale among staff at all levels. In May, I introduced LR 137 to assess the operations and practices of the Central Nebraska Veterans Home in Kearney. One of the reasons I wanted to come back to the legislature was to make sure our veterans were being properly taken care of. Since I've introduced this interim study, some things have taken place. Just this month, the state of Nebraska's Association of Public Employees reached a labor agreement that will increase wages for many employees in high-demand areas. Second, last Thursday, this committee, along with myself and several other senators and staff, toured the Central Nebraska Veterans Home in Kearney. Director John Hilgert showed us around the modern, well-designed facility and introduced us to his hardworking staff and some of the veterans who are being cared for there. I have the utmost confidence in Director Hilgert and commend him for the work he and his staff are doing, but they still have a long road ahead of them. We may have some speakers today who discuss problems that they have had working within our state system. Hopefully, the new labor contract and wage increases would help with some of these issues. But we need to focus on long-term recruitment and retention for our state healthcare workers. And I hope we will listen thoughtfully to all suggestions. By working together, we can provide the best possible healthcare for those who have given so much for us. Thank you, and I would be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Senator Aguilar. Questions? All right, I would imagine when we're done, we'll have more. So thank you for that opening. All right, I did forget to mention that when you come up to testify, if you're testifying, to please state and then spell your name so that it can clearly go into the record. All right, next, John, are you up next? Oh, sorry. Oh, okay, Greg, come on up. Welcome to the Government Committee.
Good morning. Good morning. Greg Holloway, Greg Holloway, and I am the Vice Chair of the Nebraska Veterans Home Board. And our Chair, Jim Chada, has a legal brief this morning, so he could not attend. So he asked me to attend and say just pretty much, yes, we do agree with the study and support it 100%. Pretty short and simple, that we just not only benefit the Kearney Veterans Home, but all our veterans home and all our veterans in the state of Nebraska. So I say, let's do it and make sure that we take care of everything.
Question for you. How long have you been on the board?
Well, I suppose at least 12 years.
Okay, so you've seen a lot of change during that period,
Oh, yes.
and you're convinced that we're tracking in a positive way where we're at, not just with Kearney, but overall.
Oh, it's moved forward 100%. Let me see, it was called the Board of Inquiry and Review when I first was a member of it. And that's quite a while ago. It's changed to the Nebraska Veterans Home Board since then. I've seen a lot of good changes, The Kearney Veterans Home, the Bellevue Veterans Home. We have good directors in each one of the homes. We have an excellent steward for all of our programs with John Hilgert. And yes, it's moving forward good.
And just so everybody understands, how many facilities do we have here in Nebraska?
We have 4,
No,
Norfolk, Scottsbluff, Bellevue, and Kearney. Yes.
All right, questions for Greg? All right, great. Thank you for your testimony. Others to testify? All right. Come on up. Welcome to the Government Committee.
Thank you. My name is John Frerichs, Frerichs. I'm a former employee at CNVH, as an employee at Grand Island Veterans Home in Grand Island, Nebraska also. Wages have come up. I intend to go back. My father's a veteran, have a strong admiration for the employees that work for the veterans as well as the veterans themselves. I know some of you have toured the facility there in Kearney. and it is rather spread out, rather large. I feel that staffing is inadequate in several areas due to the nature of the area that it covers. I worked in maintenance. Currently, there are 11 employees in maintenance to cover both the building and the grounds, which is acres on end. I don't know the number for sure. With 11 employees, it's just not possible. We're constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul to try to get different areas covered. The grounds is responsible for not only the mowing, the grooming with the weed eating and care for the flowers and the ornamental trees in the grounds, but also the snow removal. And we currently have one person, another has returned that left. It's more that they need probably 10 people for the buildings and 4 for the grounds to adequately cover everything. Members are often moved from one area in the building to another to facilitate their care. Maybe the demands have changed. They need to be closer to a nurse's station, or the stability of the patient needs to go to a unit which has more of that type of care. So maintenance not only covers the areas of heating and cooling, each room is independently heated and cooled to the members' desired wishes. And so that's not just a mass area and go flick the thermostat. So maintenance takes care of that as far as building functions, any picture hanging, doors that have come off the cabinetry in the rooms, floor care as far as repair, not something that would be a housekeeping nature. They're just spread too thin, and then when they have to go outside due to snow removal, or areas are getting too tall and need mowed and everything, then people have to go over that way. And nobody is against helping. It's just that it spreads everybody thin. On the housekeeping end of it, there's work that probably is not getting, cleaning that is not getting done efficiently because it's area of need, gets the greatest attention. And also they're short-staffed. And so there again, it's taking from this area to get this one caught up a bit, or just try to satisfy the need at the time. Dietary is another issue. Both of those areas, I believe, housekeeping and dietary, has sign-on bonuses now to try to attract help. Usually with the shortage in dietary, they often lean on housekeeping for help as far as serving meals and everything. So that there again puts housekeeping short. Most of the meals are not prepared in the kitchen, which I understand is state of the art. Everything is delivered now. I believe it's a $2 million contract. And that is then comes in at the kitchen area and has to be carted to the homes, the neighborhoods, which are spread out throughout the facility, which takes a great deal to get those carts pushed. And I've witnessed myself, even some of the help that has been elderly as far as dietary. They're not only pushing the cart, they're trying to pull one behind them. It's not a good setup. It's not healthy. It's quite demanding. And then once the carts get down to the neighborhood kitchens, they would ask for some of housekeeping. Maintenance personnel has been helping, as long as others, even management positions have been helping with the serving of the food to the members. So there again, I think everything needs to be readdressed and viewed. dietary in the past has had a history of kind of a hostile situation. I don't know that all rules and regs that are followed for other departments are followed there. I think the person in charge kind of does what she feels right to get the job done, and that could be some humiliation of her employees in front of others. And I don't know that it's been recognized in the past or brought forward, and I think that needs to be addressed somehow, shape, or form. As far as the other departments, as I mentioned, housekeeping, that's just to manage of shortages, maintenance as well. The increase, I believe, will be huge as far as the wages and what was negotiated or spoke of here recently. However, like Grand Island, Kearney has a reputation now. I've heard in the nursing community, do not go there because, or from someone looking in, I wouldn't go there for any amount of money, just the mandatory holdovers. Many of the nurses are younger, they're mothers, and to find daycare, night care, whatever for their children at the end of their shift after they've had them all day is almost impossible. It puts a lot of stress on these gals and fellows to find care, and it's not safe either for them to work a shift and a half. And I will say that there was an example in Grand Island that wrong medication went to wrong members. And yes, there's checks and double checks, but when fatigue sets in, and it's not a good combination. And also then you put these people out on the road after they worked a shift and a half, or sometimes a double shift. That's not safe for them. It's not safe for the people they meet on the road. And it's not good for their family life.
Okay. Anything else?
I believe that's it. Comes to mind right now.
All right, well, the old colonel in me has to ask the question. If you're gonna bring the problems, what's your solution?
Staffing is not an issue for me to address. I just recognize that there are shortcomings.
And understand, this is not an issue we're addressing just with this facility.
Understand.
If you go to the state penitentiary, if you go to the state patrol, if you go everywhere, everyone's working short-staffed. Everyone's working more than a shift in most cases. So, it's not like this is a unique location for it. What we're trying to determine is the facility being run properly? Is there safety issues that need to be addressed?
Okay.
If it's staffing, that's what we've been trying to work through with the negotiation with the union to make sure that they're paid at a level so that they can be competitive. If the pay is increased to where they can be competitive, the shortages, do you think then would be corrected? Is whether it be with your, I guess whether it be groundskeeping or dietary food service or housekeeping, if their pay level comes up, will they be more competitive to get people to come there
Will
and
be
work?
more competitive, will be corrected. I think they need to overcome the perception, the reputation issue. On the nursing end of the spectrum, there has been nurses and aides. The agency help that's used at CNVH, those agency hours are higher than all the other veterans homes in Nebraska. And there has been nurses and CNAs that have left their position with CNVH to then become a agency employee in the same capacity. They can make more The wages will help, don't get me wrong. They can make more there, but as an agency employee, there cannot be mandatory held over.
Well, and I won't argue that. My sister's an RN and she gave up working at a hospital because as a traveling nurse, she made more money. It wasn't necessarily because the hospital was mismanaging her. She just could make more money. So, and there are some situations where it's just the reality of the particular occupation that is causing some of these issues. Our concern is, will we be able to fill some of the void with what we're trying to do with the increase in wages for the different positions? And you're saying that should help.
Understandably, yes, I believe it will help.
Okay.
If it can help with the mandatory hold, and if the personnel can go on board to spread the work out, that should alleviate some of the mandatory hold. But if it does not, or if it's not enough, something else in place of the mandatory hold, maybe, I don't know if the agency, if that can be a forced issue, but there's help being lost that way.
Well, I think this may be one where, we're going through some growing pains. It is a new facility.
Absolutely. It's
And,
big.
and they have made a decision to consciously not fill the home so that they didn't run into more problems. So they have a portion of it that could potentially be used at some point, provided we have adequate staffing. So I think that attitude is positive in that they're not trying to overload it and do more and have complicated problems that we may not have an easy fix for. But Senator Blood, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chairman Brewer. Thank you for testifying today. I have a couple questions and I hope you're comfortable asking these.
I'll try.
One of the things that I heard over and over again since I've become a senator was that when they were looking for new employees and they were promising a sign-on bonus, that it made the existing employees feel devalued. Would you say that that's accurate?
I think there's some separation of the herd. Most recently now, there's a $200 travel incentive or bonus, whatever, for those that live 30 miles or more. I had worked with several that were over in Minden, which I believe was 26 miles or something like that, just under the parameter. And while they were happy to see something come into place, I think it's, why 30? Why not 25? Why not 20? I mean, where do you draw the line?
So,
And I don't know how the number 30 came up.
so if I hear you correctly, there doesn't seem to be any continuity when it comes to who gets extra, who doesn't. It just seems to be kind of like, oh, we're going to reward this group and maybe
Well,
that group. Is that what you're saying?
I think there's some truth to that. With the 20%, the 30%, I know there are positions, nursing. I'm also a former volunteer fireman, but current EMT. So I know there are licenses and there's hours to maintain with the nursing and everything else. I understand the 30%, but I don't know. And it was also areas of critical need, and I believe dietary was one of those. I think there is some animosity over who gets what, who doesn't. How to be equal across the board,
That's a challenge.
I don't know that that's possible.
I guess, we'll hear from a handful of people. And usually when it's more than one person, there's something there. So it's always interesting to hear from a live person as opposed to in a letter and email. I have two more quick questions. I know in Bellevue, some of the things that you talked about in reference to where you're from are things like gardening and things that you fix around the facility. And I certainly don't want to downplay. I know that's got to be a huge responsibility, but do volunteers play a role in that at all in your facilities?
I've not witnessed that in Kearney. In Grand Island, there were volunteers. Some still volunteer and do work for the city of Grand Island. They were former employees that had retired. And I believe there's some other organizations that done some volunteering in Grand Island.
And so things like maybe like hanging things on walls or gardening or,
Gardening,
okay.
taking care of flowers, flower beds and things like that.
And then the last question I have, I look at some of the things that we do spend funds on and hearing what your testimony was. Do you think it would be beneficial if we put a daycare? Because you see that a lot, like
You do.
in our senior centers, where now they're putting daycares next to the senior center to help the seniors become more active. It also helps them hire staff. In this case, since you're talking about more rural areas, if you were a mom and you were a nurse, or
They care for your children.
Right.
Also,
if they had the space and they could provide daycare within the
the members
facility,
could associate and.
do you see a need for,
Yeah,
you see a need for that?
I think it's something to look at.
It would certainly probably be cheaper than constantly going out looking for people to come. I mean, I think if you took the marketing budget and you presented affordable daycare or free daycare, it would probably offset each other.
It could help with care from others that if that's their sole worry,
Mhm.
you know, if there's a holdover, something to, okay, there's a little relief there. Because now my child has the care. It's not always leaning on family or paying for daycare or something like that. It's still, you know, there's the fatigue and the stress issue, but
Right.
that could be something to look at.
One less worry if you have a,
One less worry. Yes.
Yeah. all right.
And
Thank
it
you
could
for
be
sharing
beneficial to
today.
the members also.
Pardon?
It could be beneficial to the members also.
No, I agree. Yeah, I see a lot of benefits to it. So thank you.
Okay, any additional questions under Lowe?
Thank you, Mr. Freggs, for being here and working with the veterans. And we really appreciate that. You left the facility for a while, and now you're contemplating on coming back.
I am. More money.
And the whole reason is because more money,
The only reason.
the only reason. It wasn't because you were overworked time, working time and a half, or
Maintenance, pretty much the overtime wasn't authorized. We do have call-in, which everybody takes their rotation there. But if the grounds were falling behind or whatever, tackle it again tomorrow.
okay.
The overtime wasn't available, I think is the correct word to use there.
Okay.
For that, it wasn't allocated to. And I could be wrong. I don't believe that it was, because I know everybody had to watch their overtime.
Mhm.
So I think it was mostly saved for on-call duties when you were called in for something. In which now, when you're on call, maintenance is also helping to serve with the food. So now there's a need outside of the maintenance hat, so to speak, where it's being used, but it's for a different area of need. So,
Well, welcome back.
thank you. I'm not there yet, but I do enjoy working with veterans, visiting with them. Growing up, my parents, my mom was in the auxiliary, dad, of course, both members of the American Legion. Just, you know, made our country what it is today.
Sarah Holland, did you have a question? No. All right, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, we'll go around the room one more time before we go to John. Any others to testify? Welcome to the Government Committee.
Good morning, Senator Brewer, members of the committee. Nice to see all of you again. My name is Justin Hubley, Justin I'm the Executive Director of the Nebraska Association of Public Employees, AFSCME Local 61. Our union represents about 8,000 state employees who work for 58 different state agencies, including the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs, and about 160 employees at the Central Nebraska Veterans Home in Kearney. I wasn't planning on testifying this morning, so I'll be quite brief, but given the discussion about the historic contract agreement we reached last week, I thought I'd say something before I actually have to get in my car and head up to Norfolk to that veterans home today. You might have heard some of the highlights of the agreement, but we hope that it will help stem some of the staffing problems. Some of the highlights at our 24-hour facilities, like the Central Nebraska Veterans Home, will be a $3 shift differential per hour for each worker in the home, taking effect on November the 8th. There are a number of job classifications, about 65 of them, that will be seeing 20 and 30% increases to their minimum salary on top of that $3 an hour shift differential. Some of those positions include food service workers, maintenance workers, as well as nurses and other healthcare staff, including our CNA staff care technicians. In addition to that, overtime until July 1st of 2022 will be paid at double time instead of a time and a half. The thought there is that hopefully more people will volunteer for those overtime hours because it will take time for these contract changes to take effect and hopefully get more employees hired, maybe even like John, he'll come back to CNBH. Two things that you can do as senators to help us out. One is a short-term solution, one's longer term. The short-term solution is I think you're going to see a deficit spending request in just about all of these agency budgets when you're back in session in January. And I'm asking you to support that. We've had conversations with Senator Stinner. I've been before the Judiciary Committee last week, and I'd ask the same of you to make sure that that happens. Secondarily, when things calm down a little bit, which maybe never, but if and when that happens, I ask that we zoom back out and look at a boring piece of legislation called the State Employees Collective Bargaining Act. For the last decade and a half, really nearly 15 years, I would use the term, not to be difficult, but weaponized the State Employees Collective Bargaining Act to keep employee wages low over the last decade by saying, if you don't agree to lower wage increases, we'll put you before the Commission on Industrial Relations and they will order pay decreases for state employees. That doesn't work in practice. And what we're suffering now predates the pandemic. And the reason we're suffering that is because those wages were kept, in my opinion, artificially low for so long that it compounded, and then you had a pandemic hit and the smoldering fire turned into an inferno. So I hope over time, over the course of the next, 2-4 years, we can have some conversations about the State Employees Collective Bargaining Act to give workers a say, more of a say, and to put them on an even playing field so that we can care for the veterans and other folks that need care at our correctional institutions, at our DHHS hospitals and such. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for me this morning, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, and thank you for bringing a problem, giving us an overview, giving us solutions. That's refreshing, because that just, it makes it clear where your problem is and what you see needs to be done to fix it.
I think sometimes unions get a bad rap for people that don't understand who we are and what we do. At the end of the day, we're just a group of employees who come together to advocate, but we need to be working together for the people who we serve. That's our neighbors, that's fellow Nebraskans. And it's our union's position, and our board of directors, who are elected state employees, has made a lot of changes in the last 4 years because we want to solve problems. So if I can ever be of assistance and have those conversations with you, we'd really like to do that.
Well, for what it's worth, I sat and have sat for 5 years beside Senator McDonald, and he's done a good job of informing me and keeping me kind of more aware of issues just because of his background with unions. And so I think that's been a good relationship, in that I probably had no understanding of how it worked before that. So thank you. Questions, Senator Blood?
Thank you, Chairman Brewer, and thank you for testifying. So I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked before. Do you see a benefit to providing daycare at facilities like this for employees?
I think there's two things that our members have talked about frequently, and when we negotiate next year, I'm sure there'll be topics again. One is paid parental leave, and the other is some kind of child care, so that workers can work. And I do think there's a cost benefit analysis to look at. What if there were a few state employees running a daycare at a facility where there's 160 plus management employees, that if that's a cheaper level of daycare and it's a benefit that the state can provide, you might attract and retain more workers, so you're not in this position.
And so as a union, all you guys really have been asking for are fair wages for a honest day's work, right?
That's what we've been looking at, and I think right now we're looking at how do we make the state be the employer of choice, especially in a community like Kearney, where there's short staffing issues everywhere. And I think that this new contract agreement is a big step in that direction.
And so we have to find ways to create competitive advantages that perhaps maybe we wouldn't be the highest paying entity, but maybe we could offer childcare to offset our lack of paying people appropriately.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for those words of wisdom. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Senator Brewer. When I first started out my career, my wise elders would tell me, go get a government job because the benefits are so good. Salaries might not be so good, but you want to look at the benefits. Salaries have come up, but now they're on hold. Would you say the benefits are still worth the job, or are most people just looking at the hourly wage?
Well, I think, we always say that sick leave and vacation leave, comp time and things like that don't pay the bills. They don't put your kid through college. They don't send you on vacation. So, for some employees looking at the narrow, what's happening for me today, I need cash. So that I think will always be important. But for folks who are looking at a long-term career with the state, and that's what we would really like to see is people make this their career, those benefits are super important, and that's how you attract and retain them. I'm a millennial, just for full disclosure. I was talking with the Judiciary Committee last week, and they kept saying, well, millennials don't want a career anymore. And I really reject that, and I disagree with that, because I know what me and my friends feel like. Our generation hasn't been given opportunities, I don't believe, for big career paths, the way some wages have been kept lower. And so I think you see our generation saying, well, this is the way the game is rigged. This is the way I have to play it. But if we really set up great benefits for the long term, I think we can have those millennials like me have a career like that.
And where do you think we are in those benefits for the employees?
Middle of the pack, I think. I think that there's more leave, and I think for some people, leave is more important than cash for them. But I think for younger folks right now, they do want some flexibility in working. And when you look at a facility like the Central Nebraska Veterans Home, they're going to be required to work 16-hour days. That's not a real good work-life balance.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
All right, Senator Holland.
Thank you, Chairman Brewer. Thanks for testifying, Mr. Albert. From your perspective and the union's perspective, and this is maybe more of a statewide question, but is there a risk that any federal mandates for vaccines may cause people to choose or decide from their own discretion not to take the vaccine and lose their job? Will that compound our situation in Nebraska?
I don't think compound's the right word, because I think generally speaking, most people, the vast majority of people who work in healthcare understand the science behind a vaccine and why that it's probably in their best interest and the best interest of people who they care about. With that said, that you asked for the union's position on mandatory vaccinations or things like that. Our belief is that that would be a mandatory subject of bargaining under state law. And so that if that were ever to come down the pike from the governor's office, which everything I've read doesn't seem that will be the case, but if it would, we just want to bargain over that issue.
Okay, if I may, Senator Blood. So we're seeing this kind of issue in other states, though. Maybe here in Nebraska, we haven't just quite got to that pressure point in Nebraska, but we've seen in other states where health professionals who do understand the science, but also understand their personal liberties, have chosen not to take the vaccine and are quitting their jobs. Do you perceive that to be a potential risk here in this state?
I don't see it as a potential risk. I think, again, state law, at least from the union's perspective, is that it's a mandatory subject of bargaining. And interestingly, a mandatory subject of bargaining and personal liberties are intertwined just like that, right? We want to have a say in what that would be. And so we bargain that collectively. And some people will want to say, I don't want that to be there. I don't want to have a requirement.
Would it help if the state took preemptive action and outlawed federal, any kind of mandates on taking the vaccine for individuals?
That's a question that's above my pay grade. Sorry.
Your opinion?
No, I don't. So I work for a union. I represent 8,000 workers. I report to the board of directors. They have taken no position on that. So I don't have an opinion on that.
It wouldn't make your job easier if we took action on it?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
All right, additional question, Senator Blood.
Thank you, Chairman Brewer. I hadn't planned on asking this question, but Senator Hallen opened the door. So in Nebraska, are we an at-will state?
Yes. Yes.
And what would be your definition of being an at-will state?
Well, an at-will employment state just means that you can be terminated for any reason, and then you could also quit for any reason. I will clarify for public sector workers here in Nebraska, it is a right to work state, just like all 50 states now after a Supreme Court decision in 2017. However, our employees can't be, our employees who are not on original probation are not at-will employees. They have due process rights in their job.
But everybody else can be fired for any reason, no reason,
Correct. If
A
they're
good
just a
reason.
private sector worker who doesn't work under a union contract, that's correct.
including vaccinations. If-
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you for your
Thank you very much.
testimony. All right, one more time around the room. Any additional testifiers? Seeing none. John?
Good morning.
Welcome to the Government Committee.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is John Hilgert, John Hilgert. I am the Director of the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs for the state of Nebraska. Thank you for inviting me here, and thank you for many of you who took advantage of the tour last Thursday of the Central Nebraska Veterans Home. I hope you found that educational, fulfilling, and about not only the needs of the home, but the magnificence of the new facility as well. I would like to offer myself to respond to any questions that you might have. I did distribute a section of the PowerPoint that was given last Thursday. And then also a brief summary of the upcoming pay changes. That's our latest information that we have. I know that there's still a few things that need to be ironed out, but this is what we believe to be the case. And it should make a real difference. And I would like to thank Jason Jackson, the Department of Administrative Services, and Justin Hubley, as well as Governor Ricketts, for convening the task force, which led to this result. So there are good things in store for the people who work in our veterans homes, our teammates. Again, the charts that I have distributed simply indicate what we know to be the case. The third-party agency hours are constantly climbing. And I also included not only the charts that are relative to Senator Aguilar's legislative resolution focusing on the Central Nebraska Veterans Home, but I included charts following up to the specificity of the Central Nebraska as to our entire agency. So you know that, yes, the situation is probably most acute at the Central Nebraska Veterans Home regarding our staffing challenges, but to a lesser extent, these challenges are similar in the other homes as well. With that, I would open and yield any questions anyone might have, any comments that were made, clarification.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for the tour last week. Many of us were out for the ribbon cutting when the facility was open.
Yes.
But at that point, there was literally nothing in there, not even the chairs yet. To see it where pictures are on the wall, the rooms are filled, and not just filled with people, but all the stuff that comes with them, and how each room is kind of personalized with the display at the front. My father's in an assisted living and my mother's in a home. To see how much nicer that facility is than what they have day to day gives you kind of an appreciation that we do have kind of a state of the art. If you also add in the Veterans Memorial, it's been really amazing at the speed that they were able to raise the money and build it and do it to where it is a really amazing memorial. I don't know that we really have another one in Nebraska like it. So it's a great way to honor them. So again, don't think that we're here to necessarily look at all the bad. We're here to look at the good too. And there's a lot of good. So with that said, let's go ahead and run around, ask questions. Yes, Senator Hunt.
Thank you, Chairman Burr. Thank you. Good to see you. I'm looking at this packet that you handed out, and I'm just curious about one of the pages. And I'm sorry I missed this presentation before, but it's the page, might be the fourth page. It says CNVH vacant and filled
Yes.
permanent positions.
Correct.
In June of 2020, it looks like there was a really sharp drop off of employees. Like you lost almost 50 employees, but that drop off isn't reflected in like any of the other charts in terms of like the NDVA or the other charts that are included. What happened in June that caused so many of the vacant positions to drop? Or they filled the positions, the
Yes.
vacant positions dropped, yeah.
Right.
But what's the reason for that sharp tick in the graph there?
I mean,
That's a lot of people.
well, the filled positions, as you can see, continue to be diminished.
Mhm.
The number of vacant permanent positions, I'm not exactly sure why we readjusted that down. It could have been consolidation, could have been splitting of positions to part-time positions in an attempt to try to make it more marketable, perhaps having more different opportunities for advertising. But those are just the vacant permanent positions as well. I could certainly get back to that.
I'm
and
interested
study
in that.
because I'm speculating right now what that might be.
I was trying to think of what was happening with in the pandemic at that time with unemployment payments and things like that. But everything happening with that, I don't think would correspond to,
No,
50 people filling that position all of a sudden. So
no, and what
It's
those
just an
are
interesting
vacant
spike.
positions. So that's the number of vacant positions we've counted dropped. So
Okay.
that it's an administrative anomaly that we can certainly get back to you on why that decision was made. And then, of course, our focus is certainly the blue line, which is the filled
Sure.
positions that keep on going down.
Sure. When we're using the data to make policy decisions, whenever there's a spike like that, I just find that interesting.
Sure.
So just curious. Thank you for your answer.
Absolutely, and we'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
All right, additional questions? All right, you're gonna go off easy.
You know,
Any final?
I
comments?
will. We had a daycare at the Thomas Fitzgerald home at 156th and Maple, a long time ago. And we will certainly look at that as a suggestion for the future. And we will have to review what exactly happened. It didn't work out there for whatever reason. I'm not saying that was a long time ago.
Right.
This is today, and we can certainly re-examine that. But the last thing I'd like to leave you with is when you serve in the military, there's lots of ways to say thank you. While you're in the military, they give you a little bit of cloth on it. Yeah. You have the GI Bill. You have the veterans organizations. Some of the box stores gives you 10%. There's lots of ways to say thank you. But the last thank you that these members are going to hear are from our teammates at our veterans homes. These CNAs, these housekeepers, these maintenance people, they all work together to produce what is a veterans home. And when the gentleman said hanging the picture on the wall, I've seen that done. You don't segregate staff. Every single staff member in that veterans home is needed. Every single staff member of that veterans home has interaction with our members. They all work together to provide that quality service that we want to give to our veterans. So on behalf of our leadership, I want to publicly thank our current teammates that are working at our veterans homes, many extra hours over the course of the pandemic. Truly, in Nebraska, in that division, we have heroes serving heroes. And I want to thank them for their service as well.
Senator Blood.
Thank you, Chairman Brewer. Thank you for bringing up the childcare. I look forward to you hopefully maybe keeping me in the loop on that. I'd like
Sure.
to see what you find out. And I agree with you that the people that take care of our veterans are exceptional. And I know that you've had communication with me before. My concern is always that our staff feels valued.
Mhm.
And sometimes it does involve increasing their pay, which most obviously they need it. But also sometimes it's about optics. And I know that there is concerns when there were bonuses offered to outsiders, but yet they didn't get pay raises. And it looks like we're addressing those issues, and that's a positive. But I do think that as young people are leaving school and we're trying to recruit them, we need to find something that gives us a competitive advantage over other businesses or organizations that require the same type of staffing. Senator Brewer said it himself that his sister now prefers to be a traveling nurse because she can make more money that way. When young people leave school, they're looking for what job is going to fit into my life balance the best. give me competitive pay or benefits that help me accept the pay that I'm being offered. And we're finding with young families, childcare seems to be number one. I just heard it on NPR today. It's a big challenge for a lot of people right now.
I agree with that.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, John, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
All right, I'll do one more quick around the room and then we'll be inviting Senator Aguilar back up to close. Well, Senator Aguilar, welcome back to the Government Committee.
Thank you, Colonel. Just briefly, I'm going to say that I think from the testimony here today, we've all gleaned that the challenges facing Central Nebraska Veterans Home and other homes at 24/7 facilities across the state can be attributed to staffing shortages. Staffing shortage is caused by the fact that we don't pay as well as private agencies throughout the state. Senator Sanders can attest to that. She owns a facility. With that being said, I would encourage the legislature to do whatever it can to make sure that we take care of these low wages, move forward with that, and continue to move forward throughout the future when there's discrepancies in the amount that we pay compared to private agencies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think when the discussion with the representative from the union came up, he said, short term, what he needed from us is to remember when the time comes to look at our spending, that increase is going to be a part of it. And we just need to remember that. And I think that's a fair warning that, that's coming. We shouldn't be surprised and be prepared to be sure that we remember that they need it in order to be competitive. So, well, thank you for this LR and this chance to look at the home and the facilities and better understand, how it works.
Thank you for your attention today. And I also want to thank the healthcare workers that have continued to work at the home because they are definitely heroes serving heroes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ray. That concludes our LR 137 hearing. Thank you.
Sean?